Hello, my name is Anne Victoria, and this is my presentation, Animal Consciousness Perception and its Effects in Animal Rights. So, upon my research, I came upon my question, can you change the perception of animal intelligence, refine animal rights laws? And I came to my argument saying that changing the perception of animal rights consciousness will change animal rights laws, just because you will have a more understanding of consciousness and animals, which mean that these laws will refine against the animals' rights and changing the way they are handled and treated in confinement. My counter-argument is that these animals are not conscious. They only act on evolutionary instinct, meaning that when they are given food to perform an act, they are only doing the act to get the food. They are not actually understanding the problem. My rebuttal is that these animals may show signs of non-consciousness behaviors, but in the wild, many other animals have shown signs that they are understanding, such as birds and larger mammals like gorillas. My stimulus material was extrasensory perception. I used this as a way to define what consciousness is, just because at the moment there is no scientific evidence to prove consciousness in animals or measure it even in humans. So I used extrasensory perception, where they went over what it is to be present in mentally or physically, and I use it as a catalyst to say that being conscious is the ability to understand and understand the environment around them and have emotions. So my proof of animal consciousness using this definition is that orcas in the documentary Blackfish have shown signs of acting on a problem that came forth on them. When they were being captured to be sold into entertainment, the orcas acted affectionately. They separated in groups where the mother took their youngs away from the boats upon understanding that the boats with the hunting nets were going after the young, and the males tried to divert the boats elsewhere. This shows effective signs of understanding their ability to be conscious. They knew what was going to happen and they tried to deter it. As well as not in bigger mammals, as well in smaller animals like birds, they have shown signs to understand their situations further from actions, such as when they're given food, they use the environment around them. They will be perched on top of a stop sign or a stoplight and throw the food like a nut, where they cannot crack open onto the ground and have the car run over it. In third world countries, it is shown that these animals are not seen as conscious. They are seen as tools instead to provide for sustenance, and they're not given a conscious link that they can feel emotions or have pain or have any understanding. They're simply just tools. Changing this perception will help with animal rights, just because you will implement a need to understand that these animals do indeed feel emotions and have an understanding. In animals in entertainment, it's often seen that they're not given a valid amount of space, and they're not given enough enrichment to sustain themselves. They're often bored, they show depression, and this is mostly because they do not believe the animals have an understanding of the environment around them. They're not conscious, therefore they do not need this. And well, in fact, they do need this just because they are conscious, and this needs to be implemented. Animals in the food industry are also shown to be inadequately sustained. They are cramped into small spaces, they're not given enrichment, they're not given enough hay for them. This is because they believe that they do not feel pain, they're just there as beings that do not have a conscious act. As well, in the medical fields, it is shown that the major problem in the IACUC is that they're using animals in medical field, but they're not measuring this with the worth of what it is in the medical field, as in something as little as a minuscule problem in scientific evidence. They will use an animal, and it wouldn't necessarily be that necessary to use this animal. You could have done this act without having to use the animal. As well as in the medical field, they're not given enrichment, they're stuffed into cages, and they're as well looked at as not being conscious. So my solutions is that changing the consciousness in animals will change the animal rights laws. The animal rights laws will go into a more refined subject, saying that these animals are conscious, they can feel pain, and they do have an understanding similar to how humans have an understanding around them. And this will change in the food industry as well. That even though it is not possible to totally eliminate animals from the food industry, allowing them to have a better surrounding, as in like free range feeding and a more humane way of killing them instead of just allowing suffering. My limitations, one of my biggest limitations is that consciousness cannot be scientifically proven yet. We do not have any measurements to measure how what it is to be conscious, and we do not have any way of actually measuring this in a scientific way. I'm simply using a third-person view. I'm using what I see in humans and relating it to animals, as well as using the extrasensory perception and giving a definition to consciousness, even though there is no scientific evidence. And these are my works cited.
Okay, thank you. How did you handle the differing perspectives in order to reach an conclusion?
Well, I gathered an economic lens and I gathered a social lens on how animals are conscious, and I kind of put them together, saying that, well, this person sees them as livestock, but this person sees them as consciousness. And I said, well, if you can change one and use the other one, like changing consciousness and livestock and putting them together, you'll be able to come to a conclusion that there is consciousness in animals.
Okay, thank you. And if you had more time, what additional research would you conduct related to this issue?
Well, there is one specific problem, that the dolphin brain is highly similar to human brain. I wasn't able to go more into scientific evidence on how they are highly similar to human brains, and what part of it can be measured on the idea that humans are conscious as well as dolphins because of the brain measurements and what it is there.
Okay, thank you.